Introduce our speaker today. David, would you come on up? This is David Wagner, our pastor for CARE. And he's been in the church for about 20 years, I believe the bio says. He worked in industrial casting, originally making aircraft parts, is that?
That's right, aircraft engine.
Aircraft engine.
It relates.
I got hard to, not at all clear.
Planes are still flying.
And with an interlude in there, and he served what we used to call the Stevens ministers. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
I always wanted to take the course, but at the university, just basically too busy, and I knew if I even got trained, I wouldn't be able to help much. But it's a point in my life that I've sort of unfortunately didn't do. So we'll hear a little bit more about that. And I believe that David joined the Stevens ministers and got hooked on pastoral care. And he has 3 children.
Yeah.
Remember. Yeah. Now let me get it right. Katrina.
Give me a minute. I'll
Okay, well,
how
see,
old
well,
they are
okay.
maybe, but yeah.
Katrina.
Katarina.
Katarina.
No, Katarina.
Katarina.
It's just an extra A in there.
Okay, I missed that. The eyes are not so good. Caleb and Jacob.
Nathan.
Nathan. Okay, not close, but close enough. Okay. And he's going to talk to us today about wanting to go to heaven. I kind of like that idea. So we'll learn about it, and hopefully you'll also tell us a little about your ministry, the caring ministry here at the church. David, you're on.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, in some ways I'm kind of excited to tell you a little bit about they mentioned, talk about your faith story. I think maybe some people have heard some stuff, nobody's heard all of the stuff. I might tell you too much. But before I get started with that, I do want to, I think like most of us, my life has gone up and down. There have been good times and bad times. And usually, if I look back, like one of the things we do in the life skills class, which I'll get into, but one of the classes in the life skills class that goes 4 months, one of the classes is your life map. And you take time and you map the things that have happened in your life, and it's a way to look back and reflect and see, like, wow, that didn't make sense at the time, but looking back on it, it makes sense. But and going through this process of getting ready to speak today, I was thinking, wow, right before a downturn, I think there was pride. And how biblical is that, right? That right before my fall, I had some pride, two kind of catastrophic events in my life was I got divorced. So that's why I have this daughter who's 31, and then I have 2 boys that are 19 and 16. Because I remarried and had kids. But the divorce was, pretty catastrophic, because that was my whole identity, was wrapped around being married and having a kid and all that stuff. And I completely lost my identity when that happened. Then the next thing I did was get all wrapped up in work and my job. That was everything, that was my identity. That's who I was. And then I lost that. I lost my job with that. And anyways, getting ready for today, it reminded me of this story that I heard, and kind of researching it. Hopefully I can just pull it right up. Maybe you've heard this before, and maybe it's okay to hear it again if you haven't heard it. It's I realize now that I'm looking at Wikipedia and it's been debunked as urban legend, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyways, just for fun. Okay, this is a transcript of a radio conversation of a U.S. naval ship with Canadian authorities off the coast of Newfoundland in October 1995. This radio conversation was released by the Chief of Naval Operations, 10/10/95. Americans, on the radio. Please divert your course 15 degrees north to avoid collision. And the Canadians come over the radio. Recommend you divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid collision. Americans, this is the captain of the U.S. Navy ship. I say again, divert your course. Canadians, no, I say again, you divert your course. This is the aircraft carrier USS Lincoln, the second largest ship in the United States Atlantic Fleet. We are accompanied by 3 destroyers, 3 cruisers, and numerous support vessels. I demand you change your course 15 degrees north. That's 15 degrees north, or countermeasures will be undertaken to ensure the safety of this ship. Canadians come back. This is a lighthouse. I'll say it again. This is a lighthouse. Your call.
Pride. Yeah?
Yeah.
Gets in
I
the
just,
way.
yeah.
Power.
Pretty appropriate for these times.
I play this little, over the years, I played this little game in my head about, with songs. You know, I'm listening to a song, and when the song is singing about the sun, like sunshine, I actually changed the spelling to S-O-N, and I think about Jesus, right?
Nice.
And I know it's kind of silly or whatever, but that's me, right? That's me. So you think about it, right? Like, you know, John Denver's Sunshine on My Shoulder. There you go, right? So if you, oh, yeah, sunshine, like Jesus on my shoulder, you know, and I can feel him on my shoulder. You know, here comes the sun, right? Beatles, right? The sun will come out tomorrow, right? Like, don't just, yeah, the sun will come out tomorrow. And then,
my sunshine.
yeah, hey, yeah, see?
Sunshine of my love.
Yeah, you can, it goes on and on, right?
Green. Yeah.
Then I started thinking about,
That was great.
okay, that's all Pollyann. And I started thinking about rain, right? And I changed the spelling to R-E-I-G-N, right? Rain. So, you know, think about songs with rain in it.
Raindrops keep falling on my head.
Raindrops.
Keep falling on my head.
Raindrops keep falling on my head, and I think, well, yeah, this is God, right? That's God just in control and doing what God's doing, and why am I questioning it, you know?
In the early morning rain.
Yeah,
Morning rain.
Rhythm of the rain.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know, I think it's kind of fun. And then all of a sudden, one of my favorite songs for little kids, like if I'm working in the nursery or something like that and they're upset, is Itsy Bitsy Spider, right? So
Ran up the spout.
I think I have,
Yeah, the spout.
yeah, so this is
Ran up the spout.
the slide I made.
Came the rain
So,
and plus the fire.
you know, Itsy Bitsy, and that's me. That's me, and maybe that's all of us, I don't know. But, you know, Itsy Bitsy Spider went up the water spout, right? And out came the rain and washed the spider out. You know, but then out comes the rain, right? And then out comes the sun, and dried up all the rain, right? Anyways, it's comforting to me, and that's my life. Anyways.
Very positive outlook.
Okay, so my faith journey. I used the word convicted, not like we usually use it, but I heard somebody say something once. If you were accused of being Christian, would you be found guilty? Right? Like if they went in and searched your house and looked at your bank account and looked at your web browser history, all the things they do when they're trying to find out if you're guilty, like would they, if they did that investigation on your life, would I be found guilty? Would I be found guilty of being Christian? And so I'll try to touch on that as I kind of go through my journey. I was literally, as long as I can remember, I believed in God. I didn't have any moment where, okay, now I believe in God. I'm one of those people that just always has believed in God. My parents were divorced when I was young, and I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. And normally, and they're German, and normally you would say Oma for grandma, but they're from kind of northeastern Germany, so we'd say Omi, which is, anyways. I spent a lot of time with her, with both my grandparents. But my grandmother it was a really big deal to her that before we went to sleep, we would pray. And she would say this prayer, we would say this prayer together. I memorized it, and I used it even on my own because I felt it had some kind of power or something, and I knew we were talking to God. But you know what? I didn't really know what I was saying till later when I understood German better. Anyways, I've always believed in God, but what happened, we didn't go to church. My grandparents, my parents, everybody believed in God, but we didn't go to church. And sometime in middle school, me and my buddy are walking around town. This is in Montclair Village. And a big thing that we used to do is we would hop on the bus and come here, right? We'd come to Telegraph. That was the thing to do. You know what? It's still the thing to do. Kids still from Oakland want to hop on the bus and come to Berkeley and go to Telegraph. And my friend and I are sitting on the corner, we're standing on the corner and we're looking, I don't know, we could go here, we go to the park, we could go to Berkeley, what should we do? And I didn't even realize there was this guy standing behind me. He had a big box of Bibles, and he was a Gideon handing out Bibles. And he was just there listening to us the whole time. He must have grabbed one of the Bibles, and he went right between us, and he said, "Well, I want to go to heaven, don't you?" I went, "Yeah, I guess so." Anyways, that's it. That's that part of the story. Is this guy said, "I want to go to heaven," but that was huge because he gave me this Bible, and it's one of those little pocket ones that only has the New Testament and it has Proverbs and Psalms in there. And I read that thing, and so that is actually my first experience with Jesus, is just listening to him by reading the New Testament. And I remember, and I wish I could find this somewhere, find that original Bible somewhere. I don't think I ever threw it away, and maybe my mom has it or something, I don't know. But I do remember it was not a red letter Bible, but I remember I would highlight. I would go, "Oh, wow, that speaks to me," and I would highlight it. And I'd, read some more. "Wow, that speaks to me. I'm going to highlight it," And then when I started to learn more and started to understand more about the Bible, I looked back and I went, "Oh, I turned it into a red letter Bible because everything I highlighted was what Jesus said." right? And I think, so getting back to being convicted, I mean, even especially in high school, I joined a youth group in high school, the Oakland Covenant Church. You know, they've got a pretty active high school ministry, and I think kids in my school who were in the youth group just knew that I believed. I think in conversation, I would talk about Jesus. I would talk about God. It was just something like people just knew. I never told anybody. I never walked up to anybody and said, I believe in you. But I must have just been, because people came up to me and said, hey, you should go to the youth group, I mean, I was a little bit like stage one, you know, in the stages of faith where I was like, I saw God and Jesus everywhere, and so all my essays in high school were kind of like related to, I think I did a comparison contrast essay between Romeo and Juliet and Adam and Eve. You know, I did stuff like that, so even I could probably show you that paper where my English teacher said, David, are you going to become a pastor or something like that? Because it was just, you know, it was just happening all the time. So anyways, that's just, I think I was very able to be convicted, you know, of being guilty, of being convicted. And that continued on in work and in service. I think everybody at work knew that I was Christian, and just because of the way I talked and things that came up. I did want to mention too that maybe my work experience doesn't make sense, but ever since really, as long as, you know, the junior high and high school, I've always been in some kind of a service group. You know, I was in Key Club in high school, in the JCs after, you know, I did all the PTA and I did Girl Scouts, and then I was a Girl Scout leader, and then I was a Cub Scout leader, and all of that, and all through that. And then, really, I didn't start coming to church until, you know, Julene and I got married, and we went to the premarital counseling with the pastor in Carson City. So she did grow up in the church. And I mean, that's her story. You know, it wasn't necessarily a positive experience like a lot of people have had growing up in the church. But she went to First Presbyterian Carson City, and we did our premarital counseling with the pastor up there. And one of his requirements is, hey, you guys need to find a church and go to church. And that's, you know, part of what you need to do in your marriage. And he recommended First Pres Berkeley. And I knew about First Pres Berkeley. I was active in high school youth groups, and First Pres was active, so I knew about it. Plenty of friends here already. But, you know, honestly, that's really when I started going to church. I mean, in high school I was in the youth group, but I didn't go into the sanctuary. You know, I didn't go to church on Sundays. It was really about 20 years ago when we started coming here, is when I started going to church. And then, as we're going here, we did everything. We started having kids, and we did the nursery, and then we did the teddy bear lair, and, you know, we did everything. You know, we were active in everything. And she started doing the mothers group, and then she started in Stephen ministry, and then she became a deacon, and then I kind of followed her through those things. But when I, you know, one of the things I wanted to mention was, like I wrote down my brother, my father, and me. So my father not this one who just passed away this last year, he's my stepfather, but my birth father, he was starting to become a Christian and started going to church, and my brother was active in the youth group in high school. Anyways, all our faith journeys were completely separate. We didn't talk to each other. But we knew that that all three of us were doing the same thing. And the three of us went to Promise Keepers.
Wow.
And I don't know if any of you have been to that, but it's a mountaintop moment, right? Mountaintop experience. And I thought, oh wow, this is great. This is even better for my marriage, for my life, right? That was my big idol. And what happened? That next week, my wife told me she didn't love me anymore. And that kind of started this journey of our divorce, that took 1.5 years or whatever. And I used to think, what is that about? Why didn't we go to Promise Keepers and all this stuff? And then that happened. Well, really, it actually carried me through that whole dark time.
Amen.
And then flash forward to, I've worked at a company for over 20 years. I mean, it was I knew everything inside out, and I still do, I mean, if you go back there now, you can see my fingerprints all over the place. And then I got laid off. But right before I got laid off, Julene took the Stephen Ministry course. And like you do, you kind of practice on people you know. And she was practicing on me. And it was right at the right moment, right when I was going through my deepest, darkest time, she was right there, ready to listen and ready not to talk too much, okay? So anyways, those are the kind of the two examples of the up and down. And I think another thing when you look at the life map, and you look at your up times and your down times, you are probably closest to God in your downtime, right? Most of the noise has been silenced, and you're really talking to God, listening to God. Okay, let's see what Okay. Now I'll just talk about caring ministry. I'm going to talk about two things. One is preparing to care and the stuff that we do to get ready, to get people ready to be caring towards others. And then the active listening ministry, which used to be called Stephen Ministry, where we're actually caring for others. But care is all the support groups, it's everything the deacons do in the deacon ministry. Memorials are a huge part of what the deacons do and caring ministry does. And this preparing the care and the active listening ministry are also components of it. The mental health first aid, I mean, you can, I don't know, can you guys see what it says? The mental health first aid class, it's an 8-hour class. It starts at 9 o'clock and ends at 5:30, and it covers a lot of ground in one day. But probably one of the best ways to describe it is, it's similar to a CPR first aid, Red Cross first aid class, but for mental health. It's getting you ready to, when you're experiencing a mental health emergency, how to act on that and what to do. And I think any of the things you do, like the CPR class or the first aid class, We've been doing a lot of naloxone training or Narcan too. All of these things not just get you ready for helping somebody, but it makes you think about helping somebody. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it always helps reduce maybe any kind of stigma around somebody maybe having substance abuse disorder or having a mental health issue. Just thinking about it and what you can do about it helps you be a better person. And really, I think you're being a good neighbor if you're taking a CPR class, if you're doing disaster preparedness, if you're doing any of these things, including mental health first aid. And this, what I'm going to talk about next is the life skills class. So, the life skills class, I think it's been going on for almost 30 years, I think. And it's gone through different variations. I look at it as one of the things that hopefully everybody in the church, actually, if you talk to the leaders, we really want everybody in the world to take the class, right? That's our goal, is to have just as many people take the class as possible. But there is some cultural literacy from taking the class that you get from just, and it's part of the cultural literacy, I think, of First Press. Just to understand some of the topics and some of the things. But you should know that this class is, like the notes say, it's preparing people to interact and understand, thrive in their relationships, listen well. And this is good for your neighbors, for your friends, for your spouse. Just like my example with my wife. These are all good skills that you can learn, and we have different experts in the field come and teach classes. Many of you know Kate Rankin. She's teaching 5 of the classes today. Well, one on suicide and depression, another one on breathing. You dive deep into a lot of these different topics. One of the classes, the Life Map class, Janet Sanders teaches that. So there's a lot of, there's 16 classes, and it goes from January until the end of April. So really, you're too late for this year, but next year you can actually put it on your calendar, whatever that date is, that first Wednesday in January, that's when the class is going to start. And it is a commitment. It's from 6:30 to 9. Right now it's 6:30 to 9 on Wednesdays, but it's once a week, and there's even homework and stuff too that you need to do. It's pretty intensive, but it's definitely worth just taking the class. But taking the class is a prerequisite for becoming an active listening minister and joining the active listening ministry. So, you can read this, but I'll read this real quick before I move on. In the life skills class, you'll learn how to understand other people's feelings and your own. You'll confirm your belovedness and be able to help others secure theirs. The first 4 weeks of the class, we go over Henry Nouwen's Beloved, and it's a strong philosophy of the class that before you can help other people be secure in their belovedness of God, from God, you need to be secure. You need to build that foundation for yourself. And it's really like 2 different classes. Then we start delving in the topics. We're doing belovedness, and we're learning listening skills, and people start listening to each other. They break off in the dyads, and they are sharing really personal stuff. They're practicing sharing and they're practicing listening, and they're confirming their belovedness in this first 4 weeks. And then the 5th class, they share their story. And it's kind of cool because in May, it'll be 10 years since I've been working, but I became a Stephen minister even before I started working here. But just every class, it makes me smile. People tell me, oh, well, my class was really special. Like, we really bonded and we really got to know each other, and it's great. I hear stories, there are people, like Lee Wynn formed a small group with people from her when she took the Stephen ministry class. They are still a small group today. And that was like 20 years ago. You know, they formed this small group. It's just, and it's neat. I mean, and then so guess what? This year, what am I hearing? Oh, they are bonding with each other. This class is special. It's like they just really are getting to know each other. They bond. I don't know, it's just some special formula that's been created with this class. I'm going on too much about it, but what is my time?
You're good. You're fine, Dave. Keep going.
Okay. So yeah, increase your ability to provide life-giving care to others. Listen in the way that you can help someone feel valued, heard, and understood. I know there are people who have been Stephen ministers, active listening ministers, maybe they're current ministers. I think you would, it's all confidential, so I'm not going to point anybody out, but I think they would confirm to you that when you're an active listening minister, what you've signed up for when you get a care receiver is 1 hour a week. You make appointment with the care receiver to listen to them and to help them through. We'll get more into the detail, but all you've done as an active listening minister is, commit to meet with somebody, listen to them, ask some good questions, maybe some good open-ended questions, but really let them do most of the talking and maybe point some things out once you're listening to them. Actually, before the whole thing starts, we pray. Part of our training is that you show up prayed up, we say. And so we pray ahead of time, and it's amazing how it does create this connection to God, this conduit from God, and then you're just listening to this person, asking some questions, and then I even wonder sometimes, like, where did that question come from? But I asked the question, and it was a really good question. And then the end of the time, the care receiver says something like, wow, that was really amazing, thank you so much. And you're thinking, I didn't even do anything. All I did was listen. But it's amazing how big a deal it is, and how important it is to listen. I read something somewhere where a guy said, maybe it was even a cartoon, he said, he set up a little table at a coffee shop, and he made a little sign, and he said, listen to my story for $50. And nobody wanted to listen to his story. And then he said, okay, I'm making another sign. Listen to my story for free. Nobody wanted to listen to his story. And then he said, okay, I'll listen to your story for $50. And then, like a lot of people say, I'll listen to your story for free. And then there's a line around the block, right? That's just the way it is. It's of course. People do want to, and need to. And when you're going through something, you really need them. Okay. Active listening ministry. An active listening minister is a trained lay volunteer, a good listener, trained in confidentiality, supervised for quality care. Part of how active listening ministry works is so you take the life skills class, but then you have some continued training before you start seeing any care receivers. But there is the active listening ministers go to continuing education twice a month. So the second and fourth Mondays of the month, they're getting an additional hour of training, 2 hours a month after the class. And then after that continuing education, there's supervision, where you review how your caring relationship is going. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes too that help the ministry work right. Ready to offer God's love through Christian caring relationships, one-on-one basis. Someone who will encourage and pray with someone in need, someone who walks beside a hurting person. The people who might benefit from the active listening ministry are, if you're bereaved, hospitalized, terminally ill, separated, divorced, unemployed, relocated, facing a crisis, or just experiencing difficult times. Oh, see, I left Stephen ministry in there. Yeah. Stephen ministry helps pastors and congregations provide quality caring ministry for as long as people need it. I think maybe a typical relationship might be 6 months to a year, but we've had people that have been seeing their care receivers for years. And then what I've seen happen quite often is they'll just become friends after a while, and they get used to talking to each other, and they close their official relationship and keep meeting with each other. This is just a longer list of who might benefit from active listening ministry. I'll just leave that up and talk about it. And I do have brochures too, that if you want, you can come up and get a brochure. So the main reason I think I'm here is because there's a feeling that that there are men, in our church that could really benefit from one of these relationships. Hey, there are a lot of men in our church that are benefiting from these relationships. And you don't know, it's all confidential. It's one of the key components. I don't necessarily know what the relationships are. We have a process where we have an intake person, and that intake person, between themselves and the Holy Spirit, will try to make a match of an active listening minister and somebody who's looking for that caring relationship. And right now, our intake person doesn't even go to First Press. So it really is even that much more confidential, because he doesn't know you guys, but he knows the active listening minister. And then he gets to know you in an intake, and then matches you up, and then you have that relationship. So I guess, I don't know, just know that there are people that are already in these relationships, and if if anything on this list is happening to you, speaking to you, you know, it doesn't hurt to even just for 6 months, you know, going through this. I was going through a really hard time at work, and it ended in, you know, it started with Julene helping me and with her training. And then I was just unemployed, and well, officially I was a stay-home dad because my wife and I just traded roles. She was staying home, taking care of the kids, and then I got laid off, and then she had just started working part-time. She moved into full-time. I'm unemployed, stay-home parent. I did that for a while and took care of a lot of things at home. But really, it wasn't until I became more and more active in the Stephen ministry and started my own caring relationship with somebody that I really was able to get ready and to you know, understand myself better. You know, one of the biggest things they do is just tell you what you're saying. Like, you don't even listen to yourself. But the active listening minister, you know, okay, they've got training. They're like, what? I'm supposed to just repeat back what they said back to them? Like, what? Like, so a lot of us, if we took that training, we go, what? You know, like, that doesn't necessarily make any sense, but it's amazing how it works. So then I'm listening to myself through a Stephen minister, through an active listening minister. I'm listening to what I'm saying, and that really was what made me ready to this job opened up at First Press. In caring ministry, it was 10-hour a week. It was a 10-hour a week, you know, part-time job. Well, okay, I can do that. You know, I'll do that. And I really, you know, one of my favorite things at church was being a Stephen minister, was being a deacon. You know, I really appreciated memorials. You know, the privilege really of doing a memorial, and helping at a memorial of you know, paying back to somebody, you know, after all their years of faithful service. And all those, and then wow, that's like, I would do all of that, and you don't have to pay me, right? Like, I think that would be my, you know, that would be what I want to do, you know, on my volunteer time or on my time. So, you know, and then, like, I think a lot of you have seen, I've really, yeah, that position grew. I took on other positions and then moved in the justice outreach also. And then with Mark leaving, now I'm just all care, but it's really a lot of what I've been doing even before I started working here, and then for sure since I've started working here. I do want to just, I don't know how much time is left, and I can answer questions if there are any, but I do want to say, it just popped in my head. Yeah, in a minute, Rick. I'm just going to say, a couple weeks ago, I walked into Charlene's office because I said, I've been thinking about this, and I just have to say something, and, you know, I just got to get it off my chest. And her door was open, and I said, Charlene, can I talk to you? And she's like, you know, that's like a scary thing, right? Can I, you know? And so she's like, okay, come on in. Tell me what it is.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, you know what? I really like my job. It's just really, you know, it's hard. It's like, even like this last week was just kind of crazy. And you know what? It's getting crazier too. Like, we're losing people, and we got to figure things out. We're supposed to, you know, anyways. anyways, I'm not saying it's fun or easy or anything like that, but it does, I do have my moments where I go, yeah, this is really good for me, and this is really what I should be doing. And so, since I'm, on the staff and I'm an employee of the church and you're the congregation, I do thank you too for my job, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to do it. So Rick, did you have a question?
I just wanted to thank you for the advice you gave me when we saw each other about Christine Hearn after she died.
Okay, that's confident. I mean, you can share. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, Christine Hearn, who used to be a sign language interpreter at the church, she and I were in the same new members class, and she showed me how sign language is done. And then afterwards, she did what happens with a lot of people. They move, and she moved to Pleasanton, and then we just lost touch, except for Christmas and for her birthdays. And then when she died last year, I was like, why didn't I talk to her? Why couldn't we have had at least one conversation together? And David was the one who came, and I was having trouble sleeping, and David was the one who helped me get past the anger stage.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Yeah, nice. Do we have questions, please, Michael?
No, I want to thank Dave. I want to thank you, David, for all the work you do and the care you're giving to so many people. I'm curious regarding men. Do you have active listening men that are available to, like, if there was someone here today or in the future that wanted to contact you? Well, how would they go about getting connected with a Stephen's care minister or active listening minister?
Really the first step is to contact me. Just let me know that you're interested, and then I'll connect you to the intake person. And we do have people available. We do have men available now, to start caring relationships. And there are a lot of good guys. One of the interesting things to note about the active listening ministry in particular, like the life skills class that's happening now, that we've got a handful of people from Piedmont Community Church that are taking the class. Lately we've had people from Oakland City Church taking it, and I think they use the class to feed their Deacon ministry. Oakland Covenant Church for years has used our life skills class as the prerequisite for their Stephen ministry. And maybe that's what Piedmont's doing now. They're going to start using that class. And but what happens is some of those people will stay on, because once you've taken the class, you're able to join the active listening ministry, and you're able to then get the continuing education. And we're not worried about if you're going to see a care receiver or not yet, right? That could come later, but you can do all these other things. But then eventually, there's just this perfect match for you, and you might be going to another church, and that actually aids in the confidentiality, and maybe even makes it more comfortable. So we have a number of men that do not go to First Press that would be able to see you. There's things like that. I mean, you can meet on the phone, you can meet on Zoom. I mean, the best thing is to meet in person, but sometimes depending on the situation, Zoom can work. Yeah. So please just if you're at all interested, you can just do the intake too, and see.
I can tell you, personally speaking, like Rick, I went through some problems, and I reached out to Stephen minister back east before I came out to California, and it was really incredible experience. I was scared at first. I'm not quite sure what was going to happen, but it was just an amazing experience. So much that I wanted to become a Stephen minister, so I became a Stephen minister and did some care receiving to others, and it's a great experience. So I'd encourage men, if you're on the fence, to just take the leap of faith and follow the Holy Spirit and listen to what David has shared with us today.
David, I thought that Marty Lou was the contact person, because he was the one who referred me to you.
Yes, he's our intake person at the moment. That's correct.
anymore, though.
Yeah. So if you need a care receiver, I'll connect you to Marty. I'll connect you with Marty. And he doesn't go to First Press.
Let me ask a question. In my job at the university, I teach the, stay here.